David, just want to start with reaction to the Conference League draw. Please with that?
Well, I think when you get to later stages of any cup competition, it's always going to be difficult. I think that the most important thing is we won the group. We won all the games in the group, which gave us a chance of being at home in the second leg. So hopefully that'll go to our advantage. It's a fair trip to Cyprus, but one we're looking forward to. We're thrilled to be in the competition, and we'll do our best to stay in it as long as we can.
Is it a nice reminder for you of what's still left to be played for this season with a potential European trophy?
Yeah, I think you have to remember, how successful the players have been over the last couple of years. Semi-final of European football last year and finishing sixth. Last year finishing seventh in the Conference League this year, and I've got to be honest and say we've done pretty well in the games as well. We've played well and we've won, and we won the group, which whatever you say is never easy to do.
Is it nice, I guess, distraction, a positive distraction away from the Premier League form as well, that you've got that to look forward to in a couple of weeks' time?
Well, look, the Premier League will always be hugely important. It's I've always used the sort of word bread and butter, I think, the Premier League, so that will be the case. But I've got to say, being in Europe's a great thrill. It's great for the supporters. We've had incredible crowds at the stadium for the games. We've taken a huge away support when we've gone, and I'm sure there'll be a lot looking forward to going to Cyprus for a few days as well.
I'm sure they will. Now on to the weekend, Nottingham Forest. After the Tottenham game, I know you were asked whether it's a big game, and you kind of appreciate the question that was asked. But do you see this as one of those cliche 6-pointers?
Well, it is a really big game because all the games have always been big in the Premier League. So whenever you play first game or last game, they're always big. But there's still a lot to play, but they're getting bigger because there's not as many as there was at the start. So we played Notts Forest in the opening game of the season. It was incredibly tight game. Things on the day maybe didn't go quite for us. So we've got to hope that we can turn that around and pick up these 3 points.
And you said after Tottenham you wanted to look at the colour of the players' eyes this week to get a reaction from the game against Tottenham. What have you seen in training from the players?
Fully committed, totally focused on the job, really good professionals. Now they're the ones who cross the white line and they have to show it now in the game. So we're looking forward to getting it underway and seeing what we can produce.
And with that Forest game coming up, have you had a chance to sit down or speak to the owners right now about where the club's at the moment, what you want to achieve the rest of the season?
I speak to David Sullivan quite regular, and the first thing we want to make sure that we climb the table as quickly as we can. As you talked about, we want to keep our run in Europe going. We're going to try and do that. We're trying to keep our run in the FA Cup going as well. We're going to try and do that as well. So there's a lot of things we want to do. We're going to have to keep improving. So let's hope we can do that.
And team news ahead of this one?
What have we got? Kurt Zuma's back in training. Maxi Corney's back in training. Lucas Paqueta's doing a little bit. I'm trying to think who else might come into that category. So they're probably the main ones who've been injured. So I know what I'm going to do and I know what's going to happen, but I'm certainly not going to tell you on here.
I didn't think you would. This week we had sad news yesterday of the passing of John Motson.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask you, your relationship with him, memories you shared together at all, what he means to football in this country.
Well, quite often when you come in this business, I always say that it's amazing how regular you meet people and the journalists. So journalists who I've been involved with since I started at Preston North End, there's a lot of them still working in radio or TV or doing something else. And actually John Motson was another one of them as well. John Motson was, when I was coming up through Preston, when I got to Everton, John Motson was around, started to get to know him a little bit better. But it was only last night when I was listening to his commentary of the Ronnie Radford goal for Hereford, because it's one of the goals as a young boy I always remember more than any. And if you talk to me about FA Cup goals, that would be the one that would stick out in my mind. And I only realised last night when it was his commentary, at the time I had never really thought about it. I was thinking more about the goal. So he's someone who everybody in football respected and admired, and sadly we've lost him. So we pass on our best wishes to his family.
Well said. Also this week we saw the fan-led review, the white paper released. I know West Ham's owner had a few words about the reaction to that anyway. Quite strong words he said. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think about governance in football? Do you think it's necessary?
Well, I'd like to have a chance to read the paper to see what the government have brought to the table before I have any comment on it. But I've been in the football for a long time as a manager and as a player, and the football's been brilliant here, brilliant in this country. Yeah, there's a lot of things that which maybe we don't quite get absolutely right, but if you ask any other country what they think of our football, they would be gloating over it. So it'll be interesting to see what the paper says, but I can't comment on it yet because I've not had the chance to read it or see it yet.
No problem. Thanks, David.
Ali?
Hi there.
Just about the Premier League season in general, you've obviously been a manager for such a long time, with only Sir Alex and Wenger with more Premier League games than you. Would you say that this is the hardest Premier League season you've known, when you're looking across the board, not just for you, but if you think about the managers, the pressures they're under, even the guys in the top 4 or 5 don't seem very happy with this season, with the pressures that they're under?
I don't know if I can answer your question as directly as the way you put it, but what I would say is I think over the years I've had in the Premier League, I've seen unbelievable teams. Sir Alex Ferguson's team with Man United, and then trying to go and win at Arsenal when Arsenal had a great team under Arsene Wenger. You know, I look at the Man City teams that have been built over the years. So I think it's very difficult. But what I would say, what I do think about the Premier League now, I think there's a less disparity between probably the maybe 12, 14 clubs. There's very, very little between it. Last year, for the last 2 years, we've been competing at the top end of the league. You know, this year we're seeing a really good Fulham and Brentford and Brighton teams are competitive, you know, for European football this year. Certainly Newcastle United. So it might mean that we're going to have a situation where that could be chopping and changing. But it's always been very difficult to break into the top 4, the top 6 in the main, and that's why probably our last 2 years breaking into the top 6 really has been a big achievement.
Just looking to the game itself, and Danny Ings obviously had an unfortunate debut. Had 4 sub-appearances so far. Do you feel that he deserves a start? Do you think that it's time just to change things up?
Well, I think that Danny Ings is getting fit now. You're right in what you say, is he got an injury in the first game after 30 seconds, and really, if you look through our injuries this season, it's been quite incredible, really. You know, and I'm not one who, I don't want to dwell too much on injuries, but we've had a really difficult year with injuries right from the start of the season, from Nathan Agar getting injured in a pre-season friendly to Craig Dawson in pre-season. We had injuries right from the start. So getting Danny fit now is really important to us. And yeah, I want Danny to get chances to show exactly why we brought him.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, David. You've only won once in the league away from home all season. Does that give added pressure for you to win games at home?
It does, but I think when you've had 6 out of 8 away from home in the last 8 games, then you start to put things a little bit more into perspective, because that tells you then if we've only won 1 away, it's telling you that we're not been winning an awful lot. But the truth is, we've been away from home that much. It's nearly, and actually, if you look at this month as well, and you look at the way the things are going, you know, we've got away to Manchester United. Then we're first games actually in Europe away as well. We've had an incredible amount of away games at this period.
Are you surprised when last week Bournemouth and Southampton did get results away from home? Is that
No, not surprised, because I think the Premier League's got that in it. We'll have our big results on our day still to come, and I've got no doubt we'll win a couple of big games away from home.
Just lastly, after this game you've got Villa, Southampton and Leeds at home. They're the only other teams in the bottom half that you've got at home for the rest of the season. Are you really looking at this game as a game that you have to win?
Well, I'm not looking as far forward as what you've done there. I'm looking at the next game and focus on Notts Forest. And you're right, we have to try and win against Notts Forest. Hugely key that we try and win that game. We're home form in the last 2 games. We drew with Chelsea, we beat Everton. So, and as I said, the other 6 of the last 8 have been away from home. So hopefully we can try and keep a positive vibe going in our home form.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
If you believe what you're reading and what you see, you're meant to be under extreme pressure in this game. You don't look like a man who's under extreme.
I think all managers are under pressure. You can see, I think we mentioned there, you know, somebody mentioned there about, you know, some of the top teams and how their clubs have been performing. So I think all managers have a level to continue winning is a big thing. If you're at the top, you have to win. If you're at the bottom, you have to make sure you avoid the real bottom. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think you'd be right if you said that we're under pressure. Yeah.
Goals are a massive thing. They're the thing in football. To that end, I know you've been asked about Danny Ings already, but I mean, there's a chance for him to go and be a real hero, isn't there? Not only against Everton, but in the next 2 or 3 months.
Well, I think Danny Ings his reputation speaks for itself. His goals that he scored at nearly all the clubs he's played for. So I'm hoping that he can reproduce that here. Unfortunately, as I said, he picked up a bit of a knee injury after 30 seconds of the game he came on. So, or maybe we would have seen more of him so far. But no, he's getting closer to readiness now, and he's settling in. You know, we've got him here for a few years in a contract, so it's not as if we have to get him out in the next 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We have to make sure that we have him ready to play for the next 3 or 4 years.
Was the Forest game earlier in the season almost, did it encompass your season in a 90-minute spell? You had a golden spell, which was people scratching their heads about. You hit the post and the crossbar, you had a missed penalty. I know sliding doors moments, but I mean, that went against you in a sense. I feel like you've almost been trying to play catch up since that.
You're a lot of the things you say is right. Actually, I was watching back because we're playing Forest. I was looking at some of the clips and I watched it. Kurt Zuma's header kicked off the line in the 82nd minute, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, how did that not go in, or how did they get it off the line? So, and you do look at back and we miss a penalty kick in that game as well. So things like that certainly do. Look, it's well gone, so we're not saying that that's getting to do, but I think the point you're making is a good one, that sometimes you need that little bit of good fortune, and on that day we didn't get it. But no, we're at it now. I think we're getting a little bit better. Mentality's better now as well, so hopefully we can pick up some more wins.
How much do you and the team need the crowd to really help you?
No, we need it huge. I mean, I look at the crowd over the last 2 years. It's been brilliant. I think we've got a capacity tomorrow against Nottingham Forest. We had it last week. 65,000, 65, yeah, 62,500. We have huge crowds coming to West Ham, and that's because over the years they've seen good teams playing recently. They've got some really top players in the West Ham side. So we played Newcastle the other week, and I looked at how their success, and they've got an incredible crowd behind them as well at the moment. So sometimes it's when you're going not so well, you need your supporters to really be with you as well. So we need them with us, and hopefully everybody cheering the players on.
Can I finally ask you, today is unbelievably the 30th anniversary of the passing of Bobby Moore, probably the greatest pillar of this football club. Firstly, how could it be 30 years? Secondly, a word from you about him, because probably like me, you would have seen him play. Yeah.
Well, look, obviously the people who have been connected with West Ham and supporters who've followed it, and probably the older generation will know much more about Bobby Moore than I do. I'm actually having dinner tonight with Trevor Brooken, and I'll ask Trevor a lot about Bobby. But I was talking to Trevor last week, and who was giving me a great insight. But if you think that West Ham has still got the only Englishman to lift a World Cup, it's quite an achievement. You know, when you look at, we've talked a lot about the Premier League, we've talked about the players, we've talked about the managers who've been in it. So there's a little bit of pride that West Ham have that legendary figure. And I hope tomorrow, certainly all the older generation will remember him, and the new West Ham supporters, hopefully will be getting told that by their parents, or by people who are sitting next to them at the game tomorrow.